Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I've got an unboxing day for you guys today. So, I told you about these 5 extra guitars a few unboxing videos back when we were talking about those Les Paul Customs. These are the rest of his collection that he wanted to sell off in order to buy that Fender. And just as a clarification, he's really looking for a Lake Placid blue Stratocaster from the 60s, or maybe even Fiesta Red. But let's go ahead and see what guitars that he has sent me today. And what's kind of funny is I'm actually buying 2 of these back from him. I sold them like years ago. I think it was, what, late 2019, something like that? But let's go ahead and see what this first one is. This appears to be like a mid-70s SG case. Let's take a look. Oh no, this is not one I sold him, but it's a very nice guitar. I'm tempted to do a review and demo on this one because I haven't had one of these in a long time. So this is one of the SG Deluxe from pre-1972. It's from that whole top route era, meaning it has a top route right here instead of being routed through the back. It was cheaper for Gibson to make them like this, and this is like, you know, the beginning of the Norland era for the most part, so they were just trying to figure out what they were doing here. And this is actually a pretty darn nice example, I would say. I mean, you get a little bit of finish cracking around the neck heel, but that's nothing to worry about. And this one has a factory Bigsby. What's kind of cool about the old Bigsbys in the early 70s are the ones that came stock from the factory actually say Gibson on them right there. And you've got the witch hat knobs, kind of the Les Paul style pickguard on here. Nobody ever talks about those when they discuss SGs. It's always Batwing or 61 style. What about Les Paul style? So yeah, just by looking at this thing, I would say this is clean enough. I want to document it in the future, so we will see a full review and demo of this one. Oh man, it's even got the Gibson branded Grover milk bottles on here. Yeah, this is a nice one. Even the case on this one's pretty snug. Normally they're pretty much garbage by now. All the minimal padding that these had to begin with is all faded out, but this one's good. Unfortunately, it's not the Gibson embossed one, so this one might actually be from 1971. But man, for a guitar this old, it's looking pretty good. Looks like our truss rod's good on this one, and the neck looks okay to me as well. Well, if this thing's any sign for what's yet to come, I'm really excited. I was fully expecting that one to have a little bit more wear and tear than that, but no, starting off on a good note. So hey, this box, we had just sent this off to him. He did a new Guitar Day purchase of that Breedlove guitar. You can check that one out. I posted a short on TikTok, or you can see that in my last episode. I really like that Breedlove guitar. I didn't really include too much about it in that particular episode because I thought it was already running pretty long. But I love the feeling of the back of the neck. But oh, this guy, I remember this case because it has this weird spray paint on it. Funny how you remember stuff like that for many years. So I think that makes it one of 2 guitars this one could possibly be. So let's open this one up and check it out. Generation 3 Gibson chainsaw case. I like them. They're good for shipping guitars because they're nice and bulky. They fill up a large box like that well. But if I was going to buy a chainsaw case by itself, I would just go a Gen 1 or 2. But let's see, which one is it? Another SG, I do believe. Yep. This old thing. So this is the SG. From the point when they started to almost get rid of these guys because they just weren't selling as well as they once were. So kind of what you saw happen towards the end of the VSG run, as well as the Pauls, is they swapped them over to more solid colors. So you can find things like Pelham Blue, there's this wine red cherry color. I believe I've actually already have an episode up on this guitar. So I think I had initially purchased it for 700 bucks. And you know, that was just like the market, like an okay deal at that point in time. And then I sold it to him for 1,000, and now I'm buying it back for slightly even more than that. And like the market for this guitar is about $1,500 today. It's funny how the market can change so much in just so few years. But what's kind of extra cool about this one is it has the brass saddles in the rare top adjust bridge. And yeah, I remember taking this thing apart. It still has the original Tim Shaws in it. It has like a weird paint right there. And the back of the guitar has like some interesting wood grain characteristics. Those black splotches and whatnot, they're actually in the wood. It makes no sense to me, but yeah, that's kind of how it is. So I've already owned this guitar once before, so I don't think I'm going to have any surprises on this guy. But I don't think I'll do another full review and demo on this, simply because pretty sure I already have. So that means if you're interested in being the next owner of this one, you can find it on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. Truss rod looks okay, neck looks good. Next up here, let's open a box that says Martin and Company. So the story behind these boxes is he just went to a local music store. So no, none of these are acoustics. But let's go ahead and crack this one open. Okay, so this is the only non-vintage purchase this time. I'm actually really excited to get one of these. So you're gonna look at it and you go, huh, that's a little bit flatter than a regular Les Paul case, but it's not quite SG enough. So that could mean one of two different things. You either have a Melody Maker in here, or you have like an L6S reissue. But I think those cases are a little bit bigger. So what do we have in here? 5 Seconds of Summer? No. Joan Jett Melody Maker. These things are cool. I've already documented one of these, so this one's just going to be for sale on my website. It looks like it could use a quick little dusting off. I think when he was checking, the bottom of the truss rod cover snapped, that little ring there, but take a look at these things. These are cool. It's one of the few factory aged Gibson USA guitars. Now, very light aging, but they still did age the necks sometimes a little bit, but you always get the edges that have been worn in. But this thing's from 2009, so it's kind of like starting to get some age to it. They haven't necessarily reissued these Joan Jett Melody Makers. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, though, because we're in a new era of Gibson, and there's a lot of people that still enjoy Joan's music. I mean, they did just recently do her 339. You can check that review and demo out here. But this is the white one, the most popular. You can sticker it up if you want to. This is not in bad shape. However, I've been looking for her second Melody Maker called the Black Hearts model. And I had somebody who wanted to sell it to me, and then he kind of disappeared like it was going to be a consignment, but then we worked out a deal. And after like 3 months, he just messaged me days before recording this one that, hey, I'm sending it to you. So yes, I might hold on to this one for a minute, but like if you want to be a backup to buy it after I document the Black Hearts version of this guitar, feel free to contact me. But I think it would be nice to have both of the Joan Jett Melody Makers signatures from Gibson in the same episode, you know, just for a couple of nice B-roll shots like this. I like these reissues, but in my opinion, the original 65s are better. But these weird freaky fish-shaped 65 style Melody Makers, they're pretty cool. Alrighty, and then there were two. Another identical box this time. What guitar is in here? Is it the one I've already owned? Or the one I forget which might even be in here? Well, while I'm opening this one, I want to tell you a funny story though. Because one of these guitars, which I believe is this one, so it should all line up. When we were initially consigning those two customs, before I just straight up bought them from him, he had listed out the other 5 guitars that he was thinking of selling. And he said, a The Les Paul. And I got really excited. It's like, yes, I want another The Les Paul. It's been so long. And then after me getting excited, he's like, oh man, you're going to be really disappointed. I accidentally typed The Les Paul. I meant The Paul. It's like, oh man, that's a completely different guitar. From the most blinged out Les Paul ever created in the 70s to the studio model before the studio model existed. Yeah, it was a little bit of an upset. That's initially why I had said, you know, it might be better if I just buy these things, because those The Les Pauls, they can take a year to sell for what they're worth. But this one, I believe, is the other one that I've owned before, because hey, that's my tape. It says the SG. And I vaguely remember this. So this is the SG variation on the Paul that I was just talking about. And I believe this is the exact same one in my review and demo that I called, who would ever want to buy this guitar? Because back then, SG standards were about the exact same price as these things. So I was like, why would anybody want these? And that reason is, these SGs actually have a regular neck profile. So in the early 70s, the SG standards were actually pretty thin, and a lot of guys don't like that. So if you want an SG that's from the 70s, and you want that close to 1.7 inch nut width, these are the guitars you want. They're a little bit more basic in that attribute. I mean, sure, it's kind of a basic finish. These are walnut guitars. That's something else that kind of makes them interesting. 3-piece walnut necks. This one looks like a 3-piece walnut body, but you can find more. But they're just really cool guitars, and stock from the factory, they've got T-top pickups in here. Kind of interestingly enough, there's only one T-bobbin on this one, but yet you've got two right there. When was this one made? Okay, 32nd day of 1980. Somebody swapped out our tuners. So that might be like a slightly transitional one where they're kind of switching into some Shaw bobbins or something like that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. This thing, not in bad shape for one of these. This is another one of those models that has gone up in value simply because, you know, the word's out on these. Back when I first started making videos, you know, in the kind of style that I do today, I think that was what, 2018, something like that. I love talking about models like these. And I actually had a friend in the Navy. He had me hold on to his guitars. He was never much of a player, but he kind of got into it because I was getting into it. So he had bought a few guitars, and this was one of those ones. It was the last one that he ended up having me sell for him. Now, this isn't that one. I'm not even sure if it's the exact one in my old review now that I see the swapped out tuners, but you can always go back and check to see. But if you're looking for one of these in pretty decently okay shape, I mean, I'm not seeing anything too crazy on it except for these swapped out tuners, I think you would enjoy this. Man, I guess it is kind of tempting to make another review on these, but I think this is good enough to show you guys the differences between a late model VSG and a very early one. So walnut body versus mahogany body. You still get the ebony fretboards on both of them, but you've got stuff like the Gibson headstock veneers. The headstock's just legitimately smaller. I mean, the font is different on the covers. I mean, they're very different guitars despite being similar. Oh, and technically, now that I'm looking at this again, this is a Gen 4 chainsaw case. You can't tell from the outside, but once you get on the inside, this is the version where they took all the padding out of it, and they kind of suck, but it's just what it is. So, if that was a VSG and I was telling you a story about the Les Paul and the Pauls, yeah, I think it's either going to be one or the other in this box. And I don't think it's going to be the Big Mac Daddy. Is that a clove of garlic? Is this the demon devil guitar? I'm gonna have to ask him about that. That is not planned in the slightest. That is hilarious, especially since we're still in that beautiful October month here of spooky, scary guitars. I'm gonna keep this thing handy, that's all I gotta say. But inside this really ridiculously clean looking 70s case, like that is nice. We've got one more latch to open somewhere. There we go. False start aside, it's a the Paul. So, even though I was kind of disappointed it wasn't the Les Paul, this is one of the cleaner the Pauls I've seen show up in a while. So these started life as satin finishes, but most of them got played so much they get buffed up into a gloss. Like this one, you can kind of see what I'm talking about right here. There was once a time when I came across a Virgin Marauder that actually still had that satin finish to it, and it looks so strange because most of them are just all naturally buffed up. And this one, as far as the Pauls go, I mean, this was a student level model, beginner grade guitar for people back in the day, but they're fantastic. I mean, they might not have been loved at first, but then later on, when these era of guitars started to get really expensive, people started to realize, these have the exact same pickups as the customs that are known as T-tops, and they're worth quite a bit. So people would be buying these up in like the 2010s and stripping all the valuable parts out of them and making them players grade guitars, and people would enjoy them like that too. But it's even better when you can find one that's still all stock and original in well-respected shape. Like, this is not mint condition. That's not what I'm trying to tell you. There's nicks and dings on it. There's like a ding on the neck right here. You got some light scratches here. A little bit of a buckle mark, but nothing incredibly deep. Like, I would not mind having in my own personal collection a mint condition one. This doesn't quite satisfy that, but it's very close. To the point where you could put this on display and people would go, wow, that one's really clean. And the ebony fretboard on this one's really streaky, so it's kind of like a combination between ebony and rosewood. But yeah, the Pauls. Check out my old videos on these things. It's tempting to redocument it since I do have quite a nice example right here, and just kind of revisit it now that I've tried so many other guitars past that. But the sad thing is my opinion on these probably will have changed simply because of how much the market has changed. I mean, these used to be $600 to $1,000 guitars at max. Now you can't even touch them for less than $1,100 in all original shape. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I might have it on my website, I'm not sure. But as of right now, the only one I plan to fully review and document would be that 71-ish SG Deluxe. Starting our packing journey this time, it seems guitars always sell in sets. So last episode we packed up the SG custom version of the 60th anniversary SG Les Pauls. And then lo and behold, this thing sells a couple of days later, but not at the exact same time as that other one. I kind of sat on these for a while. There must not be a huge demand for the 60th anniversaries, and I thought I had these priced very competitively too. Like almost $1,000 off on some of these if you include sales tax and whatnot. Really cool guitar, just kind of ran out of time. I'm slowly catching up with everything, so it was like almost on the block, but then they sold. That's alright. This was definitely my favorite though out of the custom and standard, simply because I hadn't reviewed something like this in a while. But at the end of the day, I don't need to hammer it into you guys. I love the look of these trem systems. I don't really like using them. There's probably a reason that they stopped using these things until very recently on. I actually had a buddy of mine call me up trying to help him identify an SG. And it had one of the Vibrola units, the 64 style. And I was telling them, back in the day, that was really rare to find on like a 2000s era SG or the 90s or something. It wasn't until the original collection came out 2019 that we got spoiled that this was thrown on almost everything. Outside of that, it was like custom shops or limited edition releases. Check out things like the SG3. That thing was popular because it had the trem on it and it was all black. It had the cool gold hardware. There were some really cool models with that. But now the market's oversaturated with these things and they've become a little bit less special in my eyes and more of a, I don't really want this on here, but it does look cool. That's just my opinion though. Let's go ahead and send it on to its new home. Next up, we've got one of those Fender Japan guitars to say goodbye to. The literal F-hole Telecaster. Man, Instagram people, they're just a big old hate train. Everyone on YouTube, well, for the most part, was really liking these things. But Instagram, everyone was like, I hate it, it's terrible. Come on, guys, it's fantastic. I get it, it's a bit gaudy, it's not gonna be for everybody. But to say that it's ugly? Nah, none of these guitars are ugly, but taste is subjective. So blue was my favorite at first, but as a lot of commenters were saying, that penny coppered colored finish really started to appeal to me more and more, simply because you don't find that on a Telecaster too often, and the Arctic Pearl White was pretty cool as well. But let's go ahead and say goodbye to this one. Alright, Troglodytes, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.